All right, I'm going to kick it off. So welcome everyone to our presentation today, Advertising Matchmaker. We're talking about marrying audiences to the right social campaigns. So today we're joined by Polk Automotive Solutions, that's Drew here, to discuss what elements make a successful campaign, the differences between first and third party data, and most importantly, some opportunities we see in the automotive space and tactics you can use to help navigate those opportunities using social media. So let's meet our hosts. I'm Connie Gundrum. I am CMO of CF Search Marketing, joined by Drew Cameron, Associate Director, Retail Automotive, Polk Automotive Solutions, S&P Global, and then our very own Dan Hashi, our social media director and expert at CF Search Marketing. So before we jump in, I just wanted to share a few things about CF Search if you're new here. So CF Search, we are a full service agency, digital and traditional. We've been around 16 years now, and we have an automotive focus with over 40 brands nationwide. Also, we have a technology we're really proud of. We're backed by technology, and we're a founding member of the Polk Data Partner Program, which we'll be talking about a lot today. So we would love for you guys to stay connected with us. If you scan that QR code there to the left, you'll be entered into our database where you'll get our emails if you're not already getting those for webinars and monthly content that you don't want to miss. Also, you can follow us on our social media. Erica will be putting the links for our social media in the chat as well. And right now, I'm going to just hand it over to Dan and Drew. Thank you guys again for joining us today. They're going to take you guys through a really exciting presentation. The chat is open. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. So definitely use that chat and we'll get some questions answered. So Dan and Drew, it's all you.
Awesome. Well, Connie, thank you again for having us. I really appreciate the partnership and truly look forward to this conversation today. I know that I've got a little bit of slides to talk about Polk, and obviously a lot of people in the industry know who Polk is. We are a part of S&P Global Mobility. We are the trusted leader in automotive intelligence. You know, we consider ourselves the gold standard. Dan, you want to jump into?
Yeah, certainly. Jumping off of Drew's point, a lot of this webinar we're going to be covering data, but that's just a small piece of the pie or pizza, so to speak. Our campaigns are homemade and never frozen. The dough of the pizza is the most important part, as it sets the tone for the rest of the pizza and what it's going to taste like. Similarly, setting up a campaign, whether it's on Meta or another media platform, you have to have a clear objective or outcome that you want to achieve with the campaign. So whether you want to sell more cars, get more service visits, more traffic to the website, awareness about a new location feature, you know, that's kind of the driver, so to speak. Think of like when you're choosing an objective, think of it as, the dough, but also the budget and the schedule is important too, because that's kind of like the baking instructions. For instance, if you have an awareness campaign, which is most closely relatable to like traditional display, where it's a CPM based campaign, you can run that for a day, or a single day or a week, whatever. But if you're running for purchases or leads, you're going to want to have a longer schedule for that type of campaign to heat up. So that's sort of like the baking schedule. The sauce, so to speak, is where we start to hone in on what options make the most sense for the desired outcome of the campaign. We want to use targeting that doesn't we wouldn't want to use targeting that doesn't align with the offer or goals of the dealership. And we also want to identify the most optimal media placements where the creative will shine through. Um, the toppings are the ad itself. You can have multiple toppings on a single pizza, just like you can have multiple creatives within the same campaign, or you can have multiple pies across different campaigns and different objectives. Um, the more an ad creative resonates with the audience and targeting that you've chosen, the higher the ad performance will be. Um, so that's very important. Oftentimes, if you choose the right audience and have a great creative, that will offset the fact that you have a narrower audience that you're targeting. Oftentimes, even performing better than if you had a broad audience target. And then finally, the baking instructions. Once the campaign launches and the pizza's in the oven, so to speak, you want to make sure that it's cooking throughout. Our experienced campaign managers are always looking for opportunities to fine tune campaigns for better business outcomes for longer periods of time. My team collaborates directly with Drew's team at Polk Auto Direct and S&P Global to identify market trends and opportunities we can potentially take advantage of. And then, of course, we're in constant communication with our account team, who's giving us client feedback on what's going on the ground, so that we don't have any
And
blind spots.
and Dan, I think this really hones in on the topic, right? We're constantly thinking about the way that we are trying to target someone, right? Especially as we go through some of the slides today. This is kind of peeling back and talking about your secret sauce, right? Especially along the lines of targeting, first party data, third party data. What type of creative? What are we looking to measure, right? And so I think when it comes full through and baked using this imagery, we're going to paint the picture of like why CF Search specializes for social for their dealers with targeting plus everything else that you guys do and the way that you and I and your team really and truly work together. It helps paint the picture a little bit better about, hey, what are we thinking about? How should we be placing ads? What is the time period, creative, everything else? But I do like this analogy, which is pretty funny because I know we've talked about this in the past, but no, it's a great setup for the rest of this conversation. So
Yeah, at the end of the day, there's tons of companies that do paid social media, and many of them, are pretty set it and forget it or AI driven. And I want to just take the time to say Dan and his team, and Drew, in partnership, there's a lot of effort given to our paid social, and you'll see that today. We're going to give you some examples of how we weave business problems into paid social and how we help solve those business problems. Okay.
Yeah,
Next one. Oh, sorry. That's me.
all good. Yeah, so I'm not gonna. Everyone kind of has read a number of articles on third party data, so I'm not going to talk about it too long. What I do want to illustrate is how important first party data is, how important third party data is, and how we can use both together to really make a successful marketing plan for our dealerships. So I look at first party data as in terms of two buckets. I look at platform first party data. That's kind of like the interactions you take on Facebook, Amazon, whatever other apps you use. Those apps will have data about your interactions on the app that they can then use in their algorithms to target you with advertising. The second bucket is your business data, and this is more applicable to the conversation today. This can come in several forms: transactional data, sales and service visits, VIP attendance to like vehicle unveilings, as an example, website analytics and or audience creation through feeds, or tools like GA4, and Meta Audience Manager, utilizing pixels and tags. And then it can also come in the form of opt-out information of consumers that will send you a message saying that they don't want to be included in marketing data. And of course, that stems into like another CDP conversation of different platforms that will manage that. At CF, we do have Shopper ID, which can help with that as well to kind of scale the marketing. And then in the second bucket, as it relates to this conversation, is the first party data is often referred to as like the easiest path to conversion, for businesses to convert users into leads and sales. Businesses are reaching users that are familiar with their business already. They've either had transactional data with the business, so they've like either bought a vehicle or they go there for service regularly, or they've interacted with the business in the past. So that's first party data. Drew, do you have
And
anything to add here?
yeah, no, and Connie, if you don't mind backing up just one slide a little bit along the lines of first party data, right? That should be your single source of truth. And by that, I mean, it is everything that you have along the lines of leads, your current clients. But the one thing with first party data that, you might notice is there might be waste in there. So bad data in, bad data out, right? It doesn't really create the best results unless you're continuously cleaning and cleansing and maintaining your CRM or DMS. And so when you utilize and leverage first party data, it's great for retainment, right? And outreach. But along the lines of really casting a net and reaching those buyers, which we're going to talk about. I know I keep saying talk about, but it's your great source, but it shouldn't just be your last source. And I think that's why this partnership works so well together, where it is about first party data. It is about who is inside your CRM and DMS, but also can they afford? Are they cross shopping? And that's where it kind of leads into that third party data asset where we come in. So it's less spray and pray anymore, and now it's more targeted.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into this slide as well, because one of the things that obviously we use a lot of first party data in terms of what we do with strategy, and we also use a lot of third party data in terms of what we do with strategy. It all depends on what the business outcome is, our goal for each individual business. But as you alluded to it, the pay and spray strategy doesn't always work, especially if you're in a larger market and you have a potential target of like 1 million people. You want to hone in on buyers that are more likely to be in the market for a vehicle, not just reaching everybody, because you're reaching a lot lower percentage of shoppers that are in market for a purchase. So by definition, traditionally speaking, third-party data is consumer information of users that have consented to receive ads, or audiences of users that have consented to receiving ads owned by a third party that is shared with a business for use in advertising. That's kind of a loaded definition, but this can be in the form of like lists, encrypted files, or shared via platform audiences through like Business Manager in Meta, for example, or Google Ads. And Drew, I know you wanted to add something as well here.
Yeah, I think this sets us up for the next conversation, right? It's about knowing your auto consumer better than anyone, right? And here at Polk Automotive Solutions, we truly understand the automotive consumer better than anyone. And That's for a lot of reasons. And Connie, you can go ahead and move forward on that slide if you don't mind. So, I'm sure a lot of people on the call know Polk, know the name. There's a lot of confusion in the space. Are you S&P? Are you Polk? Whatever. But again, we have registration data for the past 40 years, right? We get OEM sales data. We work with financial credit. We understand the household. And so when you're serving ads, it's really important to understand, are we serving the right ad to the right person at the right time? So again, if I'm living next to my neighbor and I'm just going out there and doing, what I call spray and pray, right? Like if I'm just reaching anybody in, this zip code that's in market, am I reaching the right client that can afford it, that are in market? Are they a shopper of mine before? But what we understand is life cycle, right? So what do they own currently? Where do they purchase it from? Did they purchase it from my dealer, from a different dealer? Are they loyal to a specific brand? Where are they at within their lease? What is their credit score? What might be their monthly auto payment, right? So my household might look different than my next door neighbors. So when you think about third-party data and you think about Polk audiences, you really want to make sure that you're reaching the right client at the right time with the right messaging. And that's what this webinar is about, right? Is marrying the audience to the creative, to the advertising, to ensure that you are actually reaching people that are in market to purchase your car. So, and that kind of leads me directly into the next one, right? So we have complete market coverage, segments for everyone, whether you're looking to reach people that are in market owners, loyalty, in market for service, which, again, people are holding on to their vehicles longer. The average age of ownership is now 12.6 months. So people are coming back and returning to your service garages to make sure that they continue on with their maintenance. And then up at the top right,
12.6 years, probably, right, Drew?
12.6 years.
Yeah.
So, and just so this is, I come from a service background. I worked for Honda for 10 and a half years on the service side. I was a mechanic. Don't ask me how I got on data. We can go into that way later if you would like to ping me and learn, but it's a long story. But service is big right now. But I think much larger than that is the financial aspect of it. Affordability is real. The economy is kind of holding back. We're in, unfortunately, a election year. So it really comes down to, what campaign do you want to run? Do I have the right audience to get in front of the right people?
Yeah, so that's a good, we're getting into a poll question here on affordability. We said we'd have some industry stats for you, which we're going to get into that, Drew is providing for us. So, our car is affordable for young adults. So our poll question is, what percentage of new car purchases are currently made by adults 18 to 34? So if you want to just kind of take a guess at that, is it 4.7? 9.2, 32.1%, or 46.8%. What do you guys think? I can tell you that while we're waiting for the poll questions to come in, it surprised me as well. So, all right. So the majority of the audience, it's kind of it's growing. We got a tie. Got a tie between 9.2 and 32.1. So let's see what the answer is. All right. Oops. Sorry. So Drew, what do you think?
No, if you'll, I think we have one more slide that I'd like to touch on real quick, just to kind of paint that picture, to show like the full scale of everything. I don't know if you can back up one more for me.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with if you could tell, I'm having trouble with
You're okay.
oh, this is it.
Okay. All right. Well, so
Actually,
again,
let me go
yeah.
forward.
Yep. There it is.
Oh, you want this one first? Okay, we
Yeah.
can.
Let's do that one first. Totally
Okay.
okay. Look, I, you put these things together and sometimes it just, things get switched around, all good. So like you said, 9.2, right? And so what that means is the younger generation of that specifically is getting priced out of the market, right? So 1 in 4 households currently paying $700 plus per month, which is kind of ridiculous considering the fact of, 4 years ago, I was paying $380 for a full-size pickup fully loaded, and now I'm paying $750 plus for my full-size pickup. I'm guilty in that bucket. But 43%, 43% of households currently paying under 500. So what that means is when they're returning to market, you're going to be looking at a much higher monthly auto payment, right? So new vehicle affordability is at an all-time low. People are shopping on price. There is, you might have been loyal to a specific brand, but now, with interest rates, with payments, lack of incentives, it is a tough time when you're returning to market to buy a vehicle. So it's the fact that 9.2 for the age group of 18 to 34 is pretty wild. But I think there's a few key things on this page that I'd like to touch base on. Is the average new vehicle is up 30% since 2019. And then if you look to the right, registered vehicles are below 30%. So 14% of registered vehicles were below 30,000%. This was 50% 7 years ago. So again, cost is growing, interest is there, ownership is staying longer. But one of the other things that I find interesting on here is 15% of finance vehicles today are within that 1,000 plus monthly auto payment. So we're in this affordability factor where it's like, all right, am I reaching the right client? I know I keep saying this, but it's true. Am I reaching the right client? What's my messaging? What's my creative? But what's my audience, right? And with our partnership, I truly lean on Dan and his expertise to really guide their dealers of, hey, we're in this kind of conundrum, right? And how do we make sure that we get in front of the right people at the right time? And moving a little bit forward is EV, which is everyone's favorite topic, depending on where you're at in the country. EVs are growing. They're here. They're now. I think in the next decade, we're going to have somewhere up past 300 plus models in EV. So if you look at this graph, it's interesting to read from left to right. I and my dear friend here at Polk Automotive Solutions, Matty Morgan, kind of call this the peak model complexity, right? So what is going on along the lines of share, right? So if we're looking from left to right, we see gas at almost 90%, right? And it's slowly declining over the next, 4 years. And so there's going to be all these models between 27 to 29, even into 2020 or 2030, where how do we reach the right client at the right time? There's gas, there's hybrid, there's electric. People are afraid of adding an EV to the garage because of mileage. And it comes down to education and messaging. And really what this paints the picture of is gas and hybrid are going to slow down and EV is going to continue to grow. Now we see that EVs kind of backing up on the lots. There's some statistics out there that say around 4 months for an EV. They're expensive, but it's going to continue to grow market share while gas and hybrid kind of decline. And so I think when you think about it as a dealer, who am I messaging to now, especially in that time period? And I know I'm talking about 4 years out from now, but still, like, we've got to be aware and really thinking about our messaging as we build brand awareness, but also messaging towards EV buyers, considering there's going to be so many models over the next 10 plus years.
And hybrid as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So those are all like opportunities, right? For us as automotive marketers and dealerships is, how do we, market if there people are having issues with the payments out there? How do we market for hybrid or electric vehicles and, the tie-in to the data side of it? And, these are all business opportunities that we can help you solve. So Dan, you want to go through this snapshot is on the from the back end of from Polk, and Dan's going to kind of take you through this.
Yeah, so it's not all doom and gloom when it comes to EVs and like the switch from ICE to more of an EV switch with hybrids just kind of remaining steady for the next like 5 or so years. But um, these are kind of some options I put together for kind of targeting, bearing in mind that you can create different cohorts or groups of targeting to reach specific buyers. So like your messaging to an EV buyer who already owns an EV or has an EV in their garage is going to be different from the messaging that you send to a gas owner that's considering making the switch to an EV. Um, Similarly, gas to hybrid as well. It's always, a little bit confusing for a consumer when they're switching from one to the other. But the learning curve from gas to completely battery electric is far greater there. So, again, it comes down to choosing the right ingredients, right? When you're setting up the campaign. So, choosing the right audience and then tailoring that creative to the audience. Also, another potential thing dealers can do is targeting nomad buyers because a lot of people have tried, their current vehicle is their first EV, and maybe they didn't have the best experience and they're looking to switch brands. It's a great opportunity to kind of reach that person who's in market again and potentially can't go away from an EV, but isn't happy with the one that they're in currently. Um, you can also create audiences for future buyers with the intention to educate. So more of an awareness, higher in the funnel type ad to kind of establish some credibility, not just at the tier 1 level, but also at the tier 3 level of like, hey, our team here at Joe Schmo dealership knows what we're talking about when we talk about battery electric vehicles, and here's why. On the creative side, in addition to the audience targeting, like Drew mentioned, focus on education. The landing pages are going to be extremely important because you can't just drive traffic to inventory pages and expect people to, submit forms without doing research. If you have the information at hand and available to the user when they hit the landing page to kind of inform their buying decision, that's going to help you out a lot in terms of, removing barriers from the path to conversion. Um,
Yeah, so what, Dan, what we do and Dan's team does is create unique ads for all these. So if it's like first purchase of an EV, the ad is copy is really relevant. The picture is relevant. Once you click on it and you land on the landing page, it's talking about why buy. And EV is just an example. Again, let's go back to parts and service, whatever it might be, whatever we're targeting based on our campaign and our goals, having a relevant landing page. We can also help you with that at CF Search if you don't already have those on your website. That's important to make sure that you're not, you're getting engaged traffic and they're not just getting people leaving the site and they're getting what they need. Anything you'd add, Drew?
I want to just say Nomad is a hot topic. I talked about affordability, cross shoppers. People aren't as loyal to brands. If anybody knows Polk, we track loyalty and we have tracked loyalty for a long time for all brands. And really what it paints the picture of is a Nomad is I've gone to a Subaru, to a Lexus, to a Toyota. I know that's random, but I'm just using those off the top of my head. Well, right now everybody's cross shopping. They're looking at price. They're price sensitive. Can I afford that vehicle? Maybe I'm, shopping for a different style vehicle rather than, going after a full size pickup again, right? Maybe I'm going to a full size SUV. And really what it comes down to is back to our initial conversation, is marrying advertising with the right audience at the right time. Specifically in this climate, people are extremely sensitive about what they're buying. So really quick, going into this a little bit, and Connie, thanks for jumping straight into this slide, is, with our partnership with CF Search, Dan and his team utilized our platform called Polk Auto Direct, where you can go and push audiences, which we have 1,000+ segments dedicated to roll right into your Meta ad account. And it also provides how the audience is truly performing. Again, you can grab people who are in market. I know there was a slide where I talked about ownership, in market, EV, service, financials, right? So you're able to, and Dan's team is able to, is really get selective about your campaign needs. So, I keep leaning on this because I love the title of it, is marrying those two together. So I've worked very closely with Dan on, audience recommendations, whether it's, off of geography, demographics, things like that, getting very creative about his campaign needs to select the right audience. And I can say I'm very, very proud to have them a part of our partnership program, and I've really appreciated the conversation today. So.
All right. Oops, go back again. So now we're gonna go into our Q&A. What questions do we have? Keep breaking the screen. Erica's never gonna let me drive again, right, Erica?
I think you're doing okay so far. So we got our first question. It's how do you recommend balancing first party and third party data in audience targeting strategies for social media advertising?
Dan, you want to take it first, or you want me to?
I'll take this one first. That's a great question. I think first and foremost, you want to have some level of remarketing on your website, whether that's through Google or Meta. You're paying a lot of money to acquire users to get to your website, whether that's via SEO, paid search, paid social. You want to bring them back to the website so that they will convert and buy a vehicle at some point. Now that being said, you want to attract customers or users that haven't yet interacted with your business to increase the growth of your business or your potential growth. If you stay in that inner circle of just drive traffic to the website and then remarket, you may be excluding a larger opportunity outside of that, where people, like Drew mentioned, are cross shopping, not just different brands, but also different dealerships that they may have had negative experiences with. So you don't want to close yourself off to that opportunity.
I don't have anything to add. I think you nailed that right on right on the head, Dan.
Thanks.
Okay, well, we got another question. It's what steps should our business take to ensure compliance with data privacy regulations when using third-party data in advertising campaigns?
I'll take this one, Dan. So it's a pretty simple response, is that businesses should require that all their data partners provide proof of compliancy across all usage and privacy laws. Here at Polk Automotive Solutions, data is governed by DPPA, which is the Driver Privacy Protection Act. As a result, S&P Global Mobility data is compliant with the law, and other states, California being one, they've got their own regulations, CPPA. Additionally, we use our own marketing permissible data spine for our modeling as another step in our compliancy process. It's basically proof points businesses should require when selecting data partners, right? And so also there's a few other things with that is, consideration on third-party methodology and data refresh. So we refresh our audiences every 6 weeks. So if somebody, whether it's an opt-out, whether a household had purchased within the last 6 weeks, we remove them out of that. So everything comes back to compliancy, right? And regulations, especially with everything that's gone on, specifically with Meta, but just as far as targeting and modeling goes for audiences.
Awesome. All right, and then we got another one. It says, could you share any insights or best practices for optimizing social media ad creative based on an audience segmentation?
I love this one because I feel like we didn't touch enough. So for those of you who had listened to this and said, okay, so what do I do? What do I do for this affordability crisis? What do I do for this rise in EV sales? This is, I think we can hone in on the question, this question to answer those lingering questions in your head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to piggyback off that a little bit too. Obviously, it starts with creative and messaging, right? The other piece to this is what are your campaign goals, right? Is it click-through rates? What are you optimizing towards? Is it VDP views? We always measure ourselves off of vehicle sales because of all of our data that we receive, whether it be from the states or the OEMs, right? So our number one key metric is vehicle sales. Are you moving metal, which you have sitting on your lots? Again, are you reaching the right clients based off of your messaging, off your creative? And so it's one of those things that it's, for us, again, it's sales driven. Like, how do we drive more sales?
Or ROs,
it
right?
marries, yeah, and ROs. Yes, I can't, I would be silly to not say that as well. But it truly comes down to those two things. Yes.
Yeah, so, it all starts with us understanding as an agency, what your goals are. We had a client recently that said, I just want traffic. I don't even need low funnel. I just want traffic to my website. Or do you want to sell more new? Do you need to sell more used? Do you need more ROs? Making sure you have those quality meetings with your account executives. You're telling them what your goals are. You're sharing your data. If you're getting manufacturer reporting, getting them really good data from inside your dealership, your best performing zip codes, your lower performing zip codes, giving us all of that. So then we can meet with our teams, we meet with Dan, and also not only that, but the offer, right? So we talked about affordability. Can we hit that lower segment, those 18 to 34s, with something that they can afford, to get them in the market? Do we have, I know it's not a race to the bottom. We all don't want to sacrifice our profitability, but, can we come up with something? Can we buy down a rate? Can we add a little something to the discount? So we're still making money, but we're putting something more attractive out there. Can we buy the vehicles, those entry level vehicles, more of those base models, and make sure our inventory is in alignment. So that way we have the right messaging that we can hand to Dan, so that he can pick those, audiences and set up those campaign goals, the pizza dough from the beginning, right? The right way. Because if it's not set up the right way in the beginning, then we're not always going to have the result that we need. Dan Matronga, he's one of our account executives, said it also depends on what medium we are using for the message. TikTok will be different from Meta or Insta. And that's definitely true as well. Dan, what else would you add to that?
Yeah, I
And
think just going back to the pizza slide, again, I know we keep alluding to it, but the audience that you select, your creative needs to resonate with that audience. The higher it resonates with that audience, the more successful your overall campaign is going to be. If you have, you can even have like 5 creatives in a single campaign if your budget supports it with 5 different audience segments. Um, and if each creative is vastly different from each other, but it resonates with each of those audiences you've selected, your campaign's going to be highly successful. Um,
So Dan, let me put you on the spot, and you don't
sure.
have to have an exact number. Hunter Subaru, how many ads do you think that you have running for them? Ballpark. Megan can answer that too.
I think 25 to 30.
25 to 30. So I want
Yeah.
everybody to hear that. So maybe, if you're out there running, do you have one ad? Do you have two? How many ads? Do you know how many that you have out there? Dan and his team are running 25 to 30 ads for one dealership. Granted, she has a larger budget, but they're doing that because they're setting up the creative, the messaging differently, the audience differently so that it resonates. And these are highly successful campaigns that we have running for Hunter Subaru. And again, it's not a set it and forget it approach. It's very unique and specific for the account to get the desired result.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work. I think there's a lot of work. I don't envy Dan and his team because there's a lot of work that goes into setting this stuff up.
Yeah, and I just want to call something out additional on that account specifically. With that client, we were able to collaborate, and that client has a full funnel strategy, which that term is thrown around very loosely sometimes, but we're hitting consumers at every level. We have an awareness campaign that isn't using any audience data, just broad. We're dropping a pin around the dealership, and that's just ongoing dealership branding. We have the consideration aspect, which uses a lot of third-party data, and then we have the remarketing aspect, and then we're also doing post-sale customer loyalty with service offers and returning buyer offers. So we truly have a full funnel strategy with that dealership.
Yeah, and there's landing pages. So they're clicking on the ad, they're getting a relevant landing page. So it's resonating. So if you want to see anything that, Hunter is doing, they also have other dealerships. We can share some of that with you. I got permission. As long as you're not in Nashville. Um, we can show you some of that. It's really working. I think we have one more question. How do you recommend measuring the effectiveness of audience targeting strategies, particularly when using third-party data? I think measurement is something definitely important to talk about on this. So, how do we measure all this stuff? How do we know it works, Dan?
So it's a it falls into 2 buckets. I'll talk about one and then I'll hand it off to Drew to talk about the second one. The first piece of it is CF search marketing. Before we launch any sort of campaign effort, we'll set up full tracking with industry standard events for VDP views, SRP views, leads, and contacts which are like chats and phone calls that happen on the website for website measurement. So not only are you getting all the platform performance metrics, but you're also getting the website performance metrics from Meta. And obviously we have a collaborative relationship between the account team and our clients to kind of discuss the like how the measurement wants to occur, because like there's different settings between how meta measures campaigns and how campaigns are reported in GA4. But that's we could have a whole separate webinar about that. But
I,
Drew, from the Polk Auto Direct side.
yeah, I think there's
Yeah.
two ways to answer this, just teeing off of your conversation, right? So number one is you can utilize your first party data and upload your DMS or CRM directly with CF Search to look at attribution, right? Am I selling more vehicles based off the campaigns with exposure, right? Obviously, Meta themselves are kind of, that walled garden where they don't really send out any data. But with our partnership, you can utilize and leverage, as you do, Dan, Polk Auto Direct, to see how our audiences are performing, whether it's buy-through rate, new versus used, how many sales are coming out of that audience. When I'm running this audience, who's buying, right? So you can look at it by make, model, by body style, and you can track that over time. And we're actually sending updates inside the platform daily. And again, this is to our audience. It's not to your exposed campaign, but it's based off of our performance, right? We hold ourselves accountable for driving vehicle sales. And so with our collaboration, Dan, your team goes in, looks and says, okay, if I'm running an in-market for a Ram campaign, how many sales am I generating from that? How long has it been going on? Is it an always-on campaign? And really what helps with that is you start to see competitive analysis of outside of that in-market for Ram campaign, are there other buyers in the marketplace that are, obviously cross-shopping is big, but there might be something where we can optimize off that for the next month where it's like, hey, maybe we should divide and conquer for a new set of audiences that are attacking, whether it's an owner specific or they're in market for this vehicle. And truly, I think those two pieces really help you divide the strategy and make this more effortless, I would say. Effortless is just along the lines of understanding who's buying your car.
All right. Does anybody have, Drew, you have anything else you'd like to mention, Dan, before we wrap this up? I don't think we have any more questions.
I just want to say thank you again for the partnership and allowing me to be a part of this today. I really appreciate you guys. And obviously, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me as well.
Dan, Drew, where can we reach you? Where can the audience reach you if they have any questions?
So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. So it's Drew Cameron. I work, again, Polk Automotive Solutions. Also, my email is drew.cameron, CAMERON, @spglobal.com.
Okay, and then if any of you out there would like a social media audit, we can audit your social media, tell you what you're doing, tell you what we think you should be doing. You can reach us at sales@cfsearchmarketing.com. So thank you everybody for attending today. If you